Two men, two microphones, two very different ideas about what football is supposed to stand for. On one side, the president of FIFA, the man who runs world football, standing before the global press on the eve of the greatest tournament on earth and telling the world to chill and relax about a referee from Somalia being denied entry to the United States and sent home after 11 hours of questioning at Miami airport. On the other side, the president of UEFA, European football's governing body, releasing a formal statement hours later on the day the World Cup kicked off, announcing that the same referee had been given one of the most prestigious officiating appointments in the sport. The contrast was not subtle, it was not accidental, and it sent a message to FIFA and to the watching world that will echo around football long after this tournament is over. This is the story of how Europe humiliated FIFA in the space of 24 hours, and why what UEFA did next says everything about the battle for the soul of the beautiful game. Stay with us, because what is unfolding between these two football institutions is one of the most significant moments in the sport's recent history. To understand the full weight of what UEFA did, you need to understand exactly what FIFA failed to do. And to understand that, you need to go back to the moment this story truly began. Omar Abdelkadir Artan is 34 years old. He was born in Mogadishu in 1992, a city that for much of his childhood and early adult life was one of the most dangerous places on earth. Somalia's football infrastructure had been shattered by decades of conflict. Pitches were damaged, leagues were suspended. The simple act of playing football, let alone officiating it, required a kind of courage that most people in the comfortable world of international football will never have to find. Artan found it. He became a referee. He worked his way through the Somali First Division. He earned his FIFA international listing in 2018. He made history in January 2024 as the first Somali referee to officiate at the Africa Cup of Nations. He refereed the decisive second leg of the CAF Champions League final in the 2025-2026 season. He was the sole sub-Saharan African representative at the 2025 FIFA Under-20 World Cup, and in recognition of all of that, he was named CAF Men's Referee of the Year for 2025. Then FIFA called. He was selected, formally, officially, from a list of the very best match officials on the planet to referee at the 2026 World Cup, the first Somali in the tournament's history. A moment of such significance for his country, his continent, and the sport that it made international headlines the moment it was announced. He traveled to Miami. He was held for 11 hours. He was denied entry. He was sent home. The reasons given were disturbing. A U.S. State Department official told the AFP news agency that Artan was associated with suspected members of terrorist organizations, making him ineligible for admission to the United States. Artan and his representatives rejected this completely. The Confederation of African Football called the claim deeply offensive, and the football world, which had watched this man earn every honor his sport could offer through years of dedication in one of the most difficult environments on earth, reacted with fury. And here is where the FIFA response became the story. If you are watching this and want to follow everything happening around this World Cup, subscribe now and hit the bell, because this story is developing every single day. FIFA President Gianni Infantino stood at his pre-tournament press conference in Mexico City and addressed the situation. He called it unfortunate. He said FIFA is not the king of the world and cannot rule over governments and police forces. He said he did not regret choosing the United States as host, and then, in the phrase that has now been replayed across football media around the planet, he told the watching world that sometimes it is good to chill and relax. Chill and Relax, about a man who spent 11 years building a career of extraordinary distinction, who had earned his World Cup appointment through merit and dedication in conditions most people cannot imagine, who was accused of terrorist associations without a shred of publicly presented evidence, and was sent home by the country hosting the tournament his own governing body had selected him for. That was FIFA's response. UEFA's response was something else entirely. On the same day the 2026 World Cup kicked off, within hours of the opening ceremony at the Estadio Azteca, UEFA released a formal statement. President Alexander Ceferin had coordinated directly with CAF President Patrice Motsepe. The decision had been made swiftly, deliberately, and with unmistakable intent. Omar Artan would officiate the 2026 UEFA Super Cup final on the 12th of August in Salzburg, Austria. Paris Saint-Germain, the Champions League winners, against Aston Villa, the Europa League winners, one of the most high-profile club matches of the European calendar, watched by hundreds of millions of people across the continent and beyond. He will be the first African referee in history to officiate a major UEFA final. Ceferin's statement was precise in its language and deliberate in its weight. He said, "Omar Artan is an excellent, young, but already experienced referee who has proven himself at the highest competition level of the Confederation of African Football." And then he said something that every person who loves football understood immediately as a direct response to what had just happened. "Football is made to connect people," he said, and UEFA wants to show its respect to Omar and his outstanding officiating skills. Football is made to connect people, 5 words, directed straight at the governing body that had told a man of Artan's caliber to be patient while they chilled and relaxed about the injustice done to him. CAF President Patrice Motsepe, who also serves as a FIFA vice president, a detail that makes his public statement even more significant, did not hold back. He said, "Artan had made Somalia and the entire people of the African continent extremely proud." He said the appointment was a great honor for African referees and an excellent example of football bringing together and uniting people from Africa and Europe and worldwide. He thanked his friend Alexander Ceferin personally by name. A FIFA vice president publicly and warmly thanking the head of another confederation for doing what his own organization would not. That is not a subtle diplomatic signal. That is a statement. The reaction across football was swift and clear. Headlines in British, French, German, Spanish, and Italian media all carried the same essential framing. UEFA had given Artan what FIFA could not. Europe had stepped in where world football had stepped away. The contrast between Ceferin's statement and Infantino's press conference was placed side by side in sports columns across the continent, and the verdict was unanimous. One headline captured it with 3 words: UEFA gets 1. Because that is the truth of what happened. This was not just a compassionate gesture toward a talented referee who had been wronged. This was a statement of institutional values, a declaration about what UEFA believes football is for. And it was delivered with perfect timing on the opening day of a FIFA tournament already consumed by controversy, in a way that made the governing body of world football look small. There's a deeper dimension to this moment that deserves to be understood fully. UEFA and FIFA have not always been aligned. The two bodies have clashed repeatedly over FIFA's vision for an expanded Club World Cup, over the proposed FIFA World League, over the governance and direction of global football. Ceferin has been one of the most vocal critics of what he sees as FIFA's overreach into the domestic game and the European competition calendar. The relationship between these two institutions has been strained for years. In that context, UEFA's move to appoint Artan is not merely humanitarian, it is a signal, a demonstration of where UEFA stands in relation to FIFA's vision of football and what kind of game European football's most powerful body wants to represent.
When Seferin says football is made to connect people, he is not just speaking about one referee. He is speaking about an approach to the sport that he is publicly contrasting with what happened in Miami.
And the football world noticed. Not only the journalists and the commentators, but the fans, the players, the coaches, the ordinary people who watched the story of Omar Artan with a mixture of sadness and anger, and who now watched UEFA respond with something concrete, meaningful, and fast. For Artan himself, the significance of this appointment is enormous and complicated. He will not get his World Cup. He will not stand on the pitch at the Estadio Azteca or at MetLife Stadium for the final in New Jersey. That opportunity was taken from him, and no subsequent appointment, however prestigious, can restore what was lost. But on the 12th of August in Salzburg, he will walk onto a pitch in front of a capacity European crowd for a match between two of the continent's greatest club teams. He will be the first African official to referee a major UEFA final. And instead of being defined by a border rejection and 11 hours in a Miami holding room, he will be defined by what he is, one of the finest referees in the world, officiating at one of football's premier club occasions. That is what UEFA gave him, and it is no small thing. ESPN sources confirmed that it would have been impractical for Artan to be based in Mexico or Canada, even if the political obstacles had been resolved, because all match officials were required to be in Miami for training and briefings. The structure of the tournament itself made his inclusion logistically impossible once he had been denied entry to the United States. FIFA acknowledged this reality and then apparently stopped. UEFA did not stop. UEFA moved within days, coordinated with CAF, and turned a story of exclusion into a story of recognition. That is the difference between the two institutions as it stands today, visible to every football fan on earth. The 2026 World Cup is still in its opening days. 100 matches remain. There will be goals of extraordinary beauty and moments of unforgettable drama. The tournament has already produced extraordinary stories on the pitch, and what comes in the weeks ahead will define careers and nations and football cultures for a generation. But the story of Omar Artan and what UEFA's response to it reveals about the fractures inside world football will not fade when the final whistle blows in New Jersey. It will travel beyond this tournament. It will shape the conversations about governance, about inclusion, about who football truly belongs to, that will define the sport for years to come. Gianni Infantino told the world to chill and relax. Alexander Seferin said football is made to connect people. One of those men is currently presiding over the most troubled World Cup opening in the tournament's history. The other just made a 34-year-old referee from Mogadishu the first African official ever appointed to a major UEFA final. The world of football is watching both of them very closely. And on the 12th of August in Salzburg, when Omar Artan walks onto that pitch, the story will come full circle. Not with anger, not with protest, but with a whistle, and with the quiet, unshakable dignity of a man who earned everything, lost it through no fault of his own, and found his way back. That is football at its finest, and it came not from FIFA, but from Europe.